So, Stephen D here on Pure 24/7 Radio, and I am joined once again by our good friend Bob Goody from Rural Missions. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back for a third time running. Look at this.
Yeah, this is really cool. So we're talking lots about some of the challenges, some of the positive stories that are going on in rural communities, because that's what you do. Before we get started, let's just recap. What is Rural Missions?
So we are a Christian charity working with any denomination of church, and we're just helping them to process how they can think and be more missional. So specifically within a rural context, so 10,000 or less population, and we come do that for free with a whole load of support, resources, training and networks.
Yes, and you've been sharing some amazing stories over the last few weeks. This week, let's talk a little bit about something that's been going on in the news of late. It might be a little bit quieter now, but the Quiet Revival is an interesting thing.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. So we as Rural Missions are partners with the Bible Society. We love their work. I often use their courses and programs. And a few weeks ago now, it came out that YouGov had messed up the research. They'd not quite put the checks and balances that were needed on the back end. And unfortunately, that means that we can't rely on the evidence from the Quiet Revival. So I'm all for the Bible Society. They've done everything with integrity, with honesty, and they've used the research as YouGov had told them to. And so there's nothing on that. But it does raise an interesting question of, are there still signs of the Quiet Revival?
Yeah, absolutely. And from where you sit, I'd be very curious to know what that looks like in more rural areas. I imagine it would be different, but some of the same statistics might come up. So what have you got for us on that?
So there are lots of statistics. There's lots of bits of research that are out there. Admittedly, most of them don't really focus in on our rural context, because you've got to go for where there's high density of people likely to fill in this paperwork. But actually, simply looking at, is there a Quiet Revival, I would say yes. The anecdotal evidence across the village churches that we've been working with, but all it takes is for people to take seriously what mission is. Actually, I know a lot of churches that are stagnant. I hear stories most weeks of a church that's closed, both in an urban and a rural context. There are other statistics that will show you that churches are closing, and I don't necessarily believe that's a bad thing, because sometimes churches do need to close. Some just need to be put out to pasture, for want of a better rural expression. But that's not to say that all of them are closing and that all of them are losing people, because yes, churches are growing. Some are closing, some are growing. So the Quiet Revival, firmly for it, firmly believe in it. And actually, a few weeks ago now, I was at a conference with Dr. Rob Baynard Simmons. Maybe I need to fact check that. Sorry, Rob, if you're listening. But Rob, who works for the Bible Society, he came just as all this news was coming out, and he shared, what does it look like a year on? And he started to unpack that, yes, our facts might not be quite there. They could be true, but we can't be reliant on them. But actually, he started to dig into other aspects. So there is a group called Pew Research that conducted some research, and they have real statistics across thousands of people that show church is on growing mode.
Yeah.
He also then looked at Ipsos, and church is on growing mode. The Finding Jesus research from the Evangelical Alliance, the church is growing and people are turning up in our churches. Youth for Christ research, Youthscapes research. It's not just we rely on one bit of data, but everything is going. God is doing something in spite of us at times.
Mm. And that's something that you're able to see in your position. So you mentioned some anecdotal stuff. Do you have any stories of where you can see this growth that's taking place, this Quiet Revival?
Yeah, so even in my own context, so last time I was on, I shared that I help lead a church in a more urban context. we as a church, most weeks are seeing somebody new come through our doors. And whether they've come through our food bank already, whether they've come through our coffee and chat ministry, or they've come through our gathering place, which is more for those with dementia and Alzheimer's and care needs, or whether they've just randomly felt compelled to just walk in and find out. Like, just my one church alone, we have seen significant growth because God's drawn people back to church. People are looking for answers. People are looking for truth. And for the last 25 years, for the majority of my work life, I've worked with young people. And I can tell you that the evidence will point towards it, that young people are probably the most spiritually open of any generation in the last 100 or so years. Probably even before that. We've not got statistics to cover it, but they are the most spiritually open in a world where it's full of influencers, where it's full of social media pushing this rhetoric and that rhetoric. Actually, young people are starting to turn off their digital stuff because they're sick of the fake news. They're sick of false truth coming out and people peddling their own ideals. And they're going, I just want to know what is true. And the only space they seem to find it is in absolute truth. And the church still stands on absolute truth.
Yeah, there's a song we have on our system called God-Shaped Hole by Plum. I think it was used in a film, in fact, and it speaks of us all having this God-shaped hole, this want for something. And as you're pointing out, people are very spiritual. They don't know necessarily what it is that they want, but they're searching for it. Truth being a big part of that, looking for what is true. And so that song just immediately comes to mind, is how people are searching for something, and you're gonna see people coming in, they're drawn into something.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much every church I talk to, both urban and rural, are telling me we've had random people appear in our church. And I would imagine that if a young person not used to turn up in church, they're being drawn into something, but they're expecting like modern, fancy, almost Hillsong-esque bright lights and big music. But actually, young people and young adults, especially young men, are coming in their droves for a sense of stability, for a sense of tradition. I was a few weeks ago with a Coptic Orthodox priest, so the Egyptian Orthodox Church, the oldest church in the world, as he kept telling me, Father Michael Lambros, and he was telling me that even in their setting, they are getting droves of people come in. And they have icons. Their service is 3.5 hours long, very liturgical, very unique and such a blessing. But actually the amount of 20-somethings that are coming because they just want that safety, that security, and that truth just to wash over them. They don't want the fancy anymore. They want reality, and the church can bring that no matter what their space.
It's really, really interesting to think about, to hear, and it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? When people, we have social media, we've got influencers, actually it's really nice to be grounded on something real life. In fact, I saw a meme on social media, funnily enough, talking about how basically people were escaping reality by going onto the internet. Now people are escaping the internet by going to reality, and we are seeing that.
Yeah, it plays itself out in our villages. So people are starting to disconnect and get back out of their doors. And I am starting to hear and see the stories of churches where these people are turning up. Churches are seeing growth. They're seeing a re-establishing of community. And there was a time when all the young people especially were playing Fortnite and Minecraft and all those things together. And I think we are seeing a real resurgence back to simplicity. And so actually the real buds of hope that we're seeing more and more is because the church is running a coffee morning, not they're running some kind of multimedia extravaganza.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, you can't go wrong with tea and cake. And a lot of churches will be able to do that, will have the ability to create tea and cake sort of coffee morning type stuff. And that is so very effective. And so it's really cool that you're able to help people. As we mentioned earlier, and you mentioned today, that stop, start, or change something to be more, more deliberate.
Intentional.
Intentional. Yeah. So that is really interesting to talk about this and to see that change going on as a result of this. It is a shame that the data may not be entirely true, that someone has messed up, but I suppose what we can do as Christians is be forgiving, which is the whole gospel. That's the whole thing. And I think, to be fair, Bible Society and their stance has been one of, we're not going to push it. We're just, they've been absolutely brilliant in how they've handled that, haven't they?
They have been, and what an integrity piece they've shown, because the reality is the research could be spot on still. It's just somebody forgot to click something in the background, which meant that it had a padlock on the digital space or something. So the research could be perfect, but because of that one check and balance, they can't say it is. But in the midst of that, Bible Society, after a year of pushing this, like I was at Kingdom Calling, their big event, and we pushed into the research. Like they've reshaped their strategy based on this. And I don't think any of that's going to change. They want to restore Bible confidence in everyday Christians. And I'm like, perfect. Whatever the research suggests, we need to be more Bible confident and reliant on that. And they could have easily turned around and thrown YouGov under the bus.
Yeah.
They could have gone out with placards and all of those kind of things, but they haven't. The reality is they've been gracious, and instead of becoming internalized, again, what is their response? Well, here's a research document of lots of other partners' research that point to what God is doing. It's no longer going, this is the Bible Society's research. It's going, here's EA, here's Youth for Christ, here's such and such, here's Ipsos, here's Pew Research. And it's going, everyone is showing God is good, God is faithful, God is on the move, and we will continue in that vein. Yes, they've recommissioned the research and they're going to go again, and let's pray that the switch gets ticked at the YouGov for this time. But how gracious they've been, because they recognize they're not a silo. And I think for me, that's the beautiful aspect of what is coming out of all of the last few years, is that we're not trying to build an individual kingdom. Like, I love rural missions. I love the work that we do. We aren't the best at everything. And so as I go to churches, I'm talking about CAP. I'm talking about the Bible Society. I'm talking about rural ministries and the Arthur Rank Centre and all these people, because it's not about us. It's about his kingdom come and his will be done. And I think the Bible Society showed that beautifully in their handling of this.
Yeah, and essentially that's because what we are doing is something real here, and that is why people are drawn into church. That's why we're seeing these numbers in the first place, because people are drawn into something. They know there's something there, and it's exactly what we're doing here. It's that grace that Bible Society showed. It's the fact that you're willing to point to all these other organizations because we're all about the kingdom of God rather than our own kingdoms, and that's because there's something real here.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, and I mentioned him earlier, Father Michael. He was part of a panel at this conference, and it came to him, and he came out with one of the most profound things, but it's the simplistic nature of it. And whether it's because I'm a simple person and rural missions, we want to help people in the simplicity of it all. But he said there was one day when he walked into a church and there was so much colour and vibrancy from these flowers that were around the church. There was yellows and reds and all the colours. And the priest turned to him and he was like, oh, this is so beautiful, so different. And the priest was like, it's not different. These are all the same flower, but actually they're a variation. And so it got Father Michael to thinking, and then it's led to me, and this is pretty much the main thing I've mulled on for quite a while now, is we aren't different. The Christian denominations aren't different. The Christian up the road is not different to me. They are a variation. And actually, that simple mindset change of we are all connected into that one vine, like I am the vine, you are the branches. Jesus is not saying you're a tree over there and the Methodists are a bush over there and the URC are the tree that's there. Actually, we're all part of that same piece. We're a variation. And actually, they went on to expand a couple of days ago, a friend of mine was saying that in the body there are many cells, and all those cells have different parts to play. Some have a singular part to play, a single objective, a single mission that they're called to. Some have two parts to play, but actually they're all a variation of the same cell. We're all together in this, and I think if we can start to grasp that, even in our first interview several weeks ago now, I shared about a church where maybe it wasn't the first. I can't remember now. There's been so many times we've chatted now, Stephen. But actually, when they came together and said, we all are doing coffee mornings, but actually, if we do a coffee morning together, it's not about our denomination, our church. It's about God. And I think that's a beautiful place for us to be in and really bring some hope to the situation.
Absolutely. The same, but variations.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love how you're able to bring people together in that way in those communities. And that story about the coffee mornings, those 3 different churches, I think it was 3 different denominations as well. And they came together to bring coffee morning, realizing they were already all doing it. That was such an amazing story to hear. And as you say, same, but different, like with those flowers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people are looking for something. I know for me, before I was a Christian, so I don't come from a Christian home. And I remember the first time that I met a Christian, I saw something different in him. I saw a reality that I'd never really considered. So a little bit of my background is my parents separated when I was 14, and my dad ended up holding my mum hostage in our house. And there was a whole mess, and mum ended up in hospital and dad ended up in prison, and then my mum dropped charges against my dad and he didn't get any prison time for the assault and all this. And so I flew off the rails at 14. I had no hope, no meaning. I just couldn't contemplate what life should be, and descended into this world of drink and drugs and the occult. And so by age 16, I was in my lowest point, didn't really want to figure out what life was like, and there was no hope for me. And I just happened to walk into this Christian youth club one day, and they were open every day. This guy with a baseball cap and a tracksuit welcomed me in and gave me a free drink. At this point, I was dressed all in black. I'd got white face makeup on and chains, and I'd got spikes coming out my neck, and I looked pretty grisly. And it was just that coming together of, as I met these other Christians, going, your life is not perfect, but you seem to have a truth. You seem to have a hope that nobody else can offer me. And so I ended up becoming a Christian the very first time someone shared the gospel with me, because Jesus made sense. And my life was transformed in that instant. Like, I was healed instantly. I was set free from all my addictions. I've had no kind of relapse, didn't have to go into rehab or anything, and went straight into ministry the next day, full time, because I didn't want anyone to go through what I had without knowing the hope I now have. And so as I now look at this quiet revival, as I look at this shift and change of people walking into church, for me, it echoes my own journey. We all want hope. We all want meaning. We all want to see the difference. And that's all Rural Missions is about, helping Christians to re-look at their own first love. What does it mean to really love Jesus? And if we do love him, then we want others to know him too, because he makes a difference and people want to know that difference.
That's amazing. Wow. Quite a story you've got there. And I'm really pleased you're able to bring that to us, because that is really powerful. And the fact that you're able to receive the good news and you want to see others do the same thing, find that good news, find that hope. And clearly people are searching. So helping churches, rural churches, to able to bring that to people, to bring what you got to others as well. That is so very powerful. So thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really cool to look at the Quiet Revival and some of the information around that. It's been really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd encourage you, everyone who's listening, dig into some of the research. Not everyone is a research person, but there is a reality to it all. And even if you don't want to dig into the research, just start looking around you. Are there new faces? Are there new people that you're being surrounded by? Like, what does connection and community look like for you? And again, I'll point you back towards what could you stop, start, or change for yourself to be more intentional. Even if you're not even a Christian and you're listening to this and you're going, how could I be more intentional in my relationships, in supporting my friends, into loving people? Because we're all called to love. We're all called to encourage. And obviously, if anyone wants any help, you'd love a listening ear, you'd love us to come and support you, you can head to ruralmissions.org.uk, and we'd love to be able to journey with you, stand with you, and encourage you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.
Here at Pure 247 Radio, we've had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with some amazing stories.
I was about 5k off the coast paddling, and I was watching this storm on the land, and it literally hit a mountain, and rather than just going over the top of it, just turned and just came straight at me. You can't stay on the board in that instance, so I literally am jumping off the back of the board. I've got everything tethered down on the board, and I'm just holding on to the back of the board.
As I walked in, there was a fight going on the floor. There was a police sergeant sailing over the desk to help with restraining somebody. And the doors were clanging shut, all the big metal gates, and there were alarms going off and radios. And I felt this most enormous peace come over me, because I realised that this is where God wanted me to spend my career, behind bars.
It was like a baptism of fire, and it was like the most socially deprived council wards in Britain. And then we were going into schools, and then kids were coming to the gigs, but then knocking on my door at night, and I was out there playing football to 11:30 p.m. at night, 12 o'clock, feeding kids, running youth clubs.
If you've missed an inspiring conversation and want to catch up, or you'd like to revisit a brilliant interview, you can. Our interviews are available on YouTube and podcast, so you can always catch up anytime you like. Search for Pure 247 Radio wherever you get your podcasts, or find our YouTube channel at Pure 247 Radio, or head over to www.pure247radio.org/catch up.